Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Strength in the Numbers. Our guest mentor today is Marco Singh, who's a commercial finance and business partnering leader with loads of experience working in global companies across payments, fintech, financial services, and manufacturing industries. Now, Marco originally trained as an engineer before finding his way into finance and then later on commercial finance. And along that journey, Marco has picked up some amazing bits of advice that he deconstructs on the show for us. Some of the main areas we cover are why storytelling is important, and Marco breaks out his recommendations on how we can do it more effectively to better manage stakeholders. Also, Marco goes into some of his top rules when it comes to managing stakeholders and our line managers, and also shares some stories where he's done that as well. And also, towards the end of the show, Marco leaves us with some parting thoughts about improving our digital IQ. I think it's very relevant for us to do so if we're going to continue to be influential in these times of digital disruption. So look, Marco's got some very good sayings, and I've trapped those best I can in the quotes, along with the other resources mentioned throughout the show, and you can find those in our show notes at sitnshow.com/podcast/066. So without further ado, over to Marco and the show. So Marco, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
Marco, for some of our audience who may be not as familiar with your background, would you mind sort of taking us through your journey in accounting and finance?
Yeah, sure. I think you can safely say I've taken the scenic route to my current role. I started out in engineering. My first roles were in product development and lean manufacturing, and that was a lot of fun. But I came to a point where I decided I wanted something a bit more commercial and something different. So I took an MBA at Warwick, and that helped me transition out of engineering and into financial services, and then out of manufacturing and into a more financial focus. And so when I was in financial services with the Prudential and Visa, that's where I got my accounting qualification, and that's where I moved more into commercial finance. And being in payments for such a long time, that's what led me to my current role at World Remit.
And Marco, that move from engineering to finance, we've had other guest mentors on the show who've done it. For you, like, what was sort of the biggest challenge for you moving from engineering to, say, more of a commercial role?
Well, actually, it's interesting because the move wasn't from engineering to a more commercial role. It was almost a multiple step process. It was from engineering to finance, which was more reporting, and then from reporting to commercial. So the biggest challenge actually was in moving over to finance. The challenge was the urge to be very commercial and almost getting ahead of the numbers, whereas the first and foremost thing you had to do was to get the month end right, get the numbers right, believe the numbers, nail those down, and then move from there. And that was something that was a change when I moved.
Yeah, definitely. I have to hold my hand up. I feel guilty sometimes, particularly when moving roles. Like, the commercial person inside me wants to get out too quickly, but first things first is to get the basic finance processes right, start establishing trust, and then you can maybe start getting a bit more commercial with the business. Just on that one, Marco, you sort of mentioned your area is product development and lean manufacturing. Have you felt you've been able to transfer any of that sort of prior experience into your current work?
Yes, absolutely. Certainly the lean manufacturing, that's where I did my degree, and I think, I mean, even today, those concepts of looking for efficiencies, looking to be more effective and more efficient, and breaking component parts, and analysing them, and then putting them back together, that's still relevant today as it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of pressure on us at the moment to do that. And I suppose in terms of at the moment, what's exciting you most about your current work?
I think certainly, I mean, I've worked in the low-tech brass fittings business and the high-tech payments business, and the excitement is still the same across those 20 years, if I'm honest, and that's the commercial decision-making part. Obviously today you've got the digital space, you've got lots of opportunities to use technology, improve old processes, develop new ones, but you've got the same old constraints, right? You still got uncertainty, you still don't have enough resource, and you certainly don't have enough time. So the excitement really is applying, so in my case, my expertise, which is commercial finance and partnering with the business, and applying that to the new world, to the new digital world.
Actually, so that's great because I know some of our audience have been asking about commercial finance. So it'd be really great if you could maybe break some of that down for us in terms of, or maybe even deconstruct. How can we improve our commercial finance decision making support to the business? Have you got some sort of steps or some ways we can break that down for our audience?
I'm not sure I've got a set of steps, but I guess I've got a almost like I wouldn't say a golden rule, but something I do come back to time and time again, and it's about storytelling. So there's a guy called Robert McKee. He's a professor at or was a professor at University of Southern California, and he talks about storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas in the world and to connect people. And I think we're hardwired to listen and absorb stories. And so something that I would do, and I'd always recommend your listeners do, is once you got the numbers, put as much time as you did in getting those numbers to putting together a story, make it interesting, make sure you've got some short strap lines that you can hang on to that story, and then focus on the delivery of that story. So often I've seen people put lots of effort into the numbers, and the insights just get lost because it's in a dense set of text, or there's 15 to 20 KPIs all merged into one, and it's just not interesting. Your listeners, I'm sure, will have probably come across that they're trying to condense all that hard work and demonstrate how hard they've been working.
Yeah, yeah.
But you need just 2 or 3 messages.
I think I heard it from someone very recently. It's like, clients or customers or business partners, they may want to know how hard you work, maybe, just to give them a sense that you put a lot of effort in, but ultimately they want impact. They want to understand the essence of what's going on. And it's just such a shame. A lot of folks in accounting and finance, they've had some great training, great experiences, put a lot of effort in, you get the numbers right, and then it falls down at the last hurdle when it's trying to get the message over the line. I'm sort of trying to think, I've got some stories from my own career, but Marco, do you sort of any good stories to share in terms of that could flesh that out some more for our audience in terms of a good or a bad example of storytelling?
Well, I mean, I do remember a lot of analysis on some volumetric data on where the company was doing well in selling certain items and where they were doing less well, and my team and I had put a lot of work into it, and then when it came to condensing the analysis and talking that through with my boss, it was quite soul destroying. The big red line across that lines, and you go, oh, that was a day's work, that was a half a day's work, but in the end, when I looked at it, it was actually quite impactful. And then just going back to your one of your questions around key messages and breaking down commercial finance, I talked about storytelling. And the other one is managing your stakeholders. And in that same example I'm giving you, I remember presenting my results, for the first time, and the reaction was quite mixed. And I realized later it's because for some people I hadn't taken them through the results beforehand, and they reacted against it. And so next quarter when I did it, I made sure I pretty much man-marked those people. And it was exactly the same people with similar messages, but the reaction was so different because I took the effort to grab them beforehand, 10 minutes, go through the key summary, key strap lines, make a few changes, in terms of some syntax and what have you, and off you go.
It's just one of those things that we can so easily take for granted when we do it all the time. But the first time we get that wrong, we don't forget about it. So I think you've just helped our audience avoid a major sort of, how do you say, that deflation moment when you expect a stakeholder to get your message, present it, and then they don't support it because we just haven't taken the time beforehand to sort of sound them out and get their buy-in. And it doesn't take that long, as you just described, Marco, so we can then go to the meeting with their support. And I definitely support that. I mean, I think stakeholders want to know that we've got their backs, and we're not going to drop them in any surprises, or they'd like to maybe even feel a bit more important in terms of they know what we're going to present or what we're going to say, or maybe even had some input in structuring it a little bit. And it doesn't take that long. And I always wonder sometimes if when we're a bit newer on this journey, earlier on this journey, whether or not we're a bit frightened or a bit fearful that they might criticize or say, no, I don't like what you're doing. What have we really got to lose? I think the benefit is there at the end that we get people's support. I mean, what do you think, Marco?
I wouldn't say rule number one, but one of the top rules is no surprises, and that's something that I think applies to every single boss I've ever worked for. No surprises, and then when you come to your stakeholders, it's the same for them. They don't have to agree with you, and I think it is intimidating at early on in your career, but ultimately you're not going there to change your answer so that they agree. You're getting their input, and even if they don't agree, if you've been courteous and as long as you haven't been emotive about your conclusions, because language is so important when you're applying conclusions to your numbers. So if you're not emotive, and then it's very difficult for that to become a challenging situation. Really, once you've taken the stakeholders through your conclusions and they're factual, they're not emotive, they don't really have anywhere to go, right? Apart from, I have a different view. Okay, well, that's fine. Let's have a conversation. That's almost part of the job of commercial finance, right? Have a conversation about the numbers.
That's I think you've encapsulated all commercial finance there in one sentence. it's conversations, plain and simple, about the numbers. So Marco, appreciate you still distilling the essence for us there. I suppose in terms of going forward, looking forward for us accountants and finance professionals, obviously we touched on commercial finance there and a few sort of key or golden rules. Is there any sort of other things we could look ahead, particularly in these sort of times of digital disruption and digital finance, that we could perhaps look to even get better at, so we have more relevance in our organisations?
Yeah, so I suppose one of the things that you've touched on it really, and that's technology and systems, right? And for me, maybe because of my background, but technology and systems are like yesterday's factories. They can't be changed easily. They need lots of investment. You can't plan for the future without understanding the limitations. So I'd always encourage everyone to get close to your IT and your systems, and really be careful. Certainly in this day and age, there's almost a danger that you love your technology, and you should be careful about that because it won't love you back.
That's such a true expression. I'd never thought about it like that, but so true. And I think that definitely we can give IT a very hard time, but ultimately I agree with you. We do need to be much closer to them. And I'd never thought about it, but really, yeah, our technology, we may love it, but it doesn't love us back. And I mean, how many of us really know the limitations of what it can do? Like really, really know. So that's very important. I think very wise words. So Marco, thank you for sharing that. I think I'd like to maybe actually, yeah, before we sort of go to some quick fire questions, I did notice you're doing some voluntary work with Vitiligo, or the Vitiligo Society. So maybe do you want to share some of that with our audience?
Yeah, sure. So So it's called the Vitiligo Society, and it's about vitiligo is a skin disease that turns your skin pigment cells, they turn them white, and there's no cure, and it can be very distressing for people. And so, I mean, I have vitiligo. I've been a member of this society, or had been a member for many years, and I turned up to one of the annual general meetings, and before I knew it, I was their treasurer. Uh, and I've been a director now for many years. But this society's its core purpose is to raise awareness and provide support for sufferers of vitiligo. And I mean, I've been able to bring my finance skills to this society and help them with their accounts and their finances. And they're always on the lookout for volunteers and directors. And we're going through a digital transformation
All right.
program, much like many companies trying to move things to the cloud, thinking about our communications and making those all digital. And so we need all the help we can get from an expertise perspective. But yes, thank you for allowing me to talk about them. If anyone's interested in finding out more, they can contact me on my LinkedIn profile, and I'll point them in the right direction, or I'll try to sign them up as volunteers.
Oh, fantastic, Marco. I would like to ask, what do you find is the most rewarding part of being involved with the society in your mind?
You know, that's a real tough one actually, because I'm constantly frustrated about the lack of time that I'm able to spend with them. Obviously, full-time job, and it's very satisfying when we have people come to us either through our Facebook page or through emails, and they either thank us for the support that we've given them, or they say, "Oh yeah, we've heard of you," and you know what? Quite often, just simply existing just matters a lot, because it tells people that they're not alone. So lots of people go through a very similar process with vitiligo. They get told they have it in non-ideal circumstances, frankly, and so it's very satisfying when people have that moment that they can turn to us.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. I know I work on I volunteer in different ways, but I feel they're the most enjoyable moments, and it's a good sign that we sort of get frustrated that we can't necessarily find enough time to work with it and help improve it, and see the potential of it, because it does add a lot of value to people. And it doesn't matter how many people, it just, one person, two people, that, that's all that matters, is that people know that we're there and they're not alone. So I appreciate you sharing that, Marco. So let's maybe step it up a couple of gears. When you're I suppose we're going through our careers, or you're going through your career, you must have had some various bits of advice along the way. What's been the best bit of advice you ever received?
When I was at the Prudential, I was lucky enough to work with a fairly senior executive, and he was just brilliant at presenting. He was absolutely awesome, and one day I asked him what was his secret, and he just went, practice, practice, practice. And I know it's not really advice, but it stuck with me, because he was a guy at the top of his game, and he didn't mind admitting that he put in the hard yards to remain at the top of his game.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have just went, could have told me anything really, natural talent or whatever, but he didn't. He was very open that, before every speech, before every presentation, he practiced loads beforehand to get it right.
I suppose in terms of yourself, do you find that's helped you in presentations or in other areas as well?
Yes, I think so. I'm sure there are times when you can over prepare, right? Because you're always time constrained. But it's for me, it's always been helpful. Just thinking things through, stepping things through before either delivering a presentation or putting forward a point of view. it's easy to kind of live on the adrenaline, but actually
Yeah.
the prep does pay off.
Yeah, like if you think about like commercial finance is about having conversations around the financials. Again, I love that. That's that statement. It's we're going to have to gear ourselves up for presentations, and I remember seeing a statistic somewhere that even death came third. So presentation or fear of delivering presentations was actually people were frightened more of that than they were of dying. So I know it's crazy, right? So yeah, I even think there's a book on it, and death came third. So yeah, so presentations is a big thing, and I like if practice, and realize that like it is all about having conversations, then we should be okay. And we just will get better every single time. It's just like when some of our work gets redlined, and we choose to learn from it. It does get better the next time. It's just part of practice. So great advice, Marco. Really appreciate you sharing that. If there was any sort of resources you found useful or books, what would you recommend to our audience?
Well, so I've got a book in mind. It was written 20 years ago, which is probably why I'm mentioning it now. But it's a book called The Innovator's Dilemma.
Ah.
So The Innovator's Dilemma: When Technologies Cause Great Firms to Fail. So it's by a guy called Clayton Christensen, and it talks about disruptive innovation. Now, 20 years ago, the likes of Facebook, Google, Apple, they weren't really anywhere. I mean, they existed, maybe. I'm not even sure they did really, but this book talks about how successful companies can, if they can do everything right, tick all the boxes, but they can still lose their market leadership, and that's because you've got disruptive innovation and new competitors coming left field to take over the market. So I just think that's a fascinating book, and given when it was written, it was hugely insightful.
Yeah, God, and with all the disruption we have now, it just feels like it's got even faster. It's probably even more relevant today than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and again, I think we had a guest on recently, and one thing we should be doing better as finance is scanning the environment for those new threats and or opportunities, if you want to look at it that way. And we felt and I think that's I've actually never read that book all the way through, but I've definitely seen some of Clayton Christensen's YouTube videos. So definitely a guy worth checking out for our audience. So thanks for sharing that, Marco. And I suppose in terms of should some of our audience wish to reach out to you, Marco, where's the best place to find you at?
So you got all my contact details are on LinkedIn, so that's the best starting point.
Okay, so I'll put those details as well as sort of other resources mentioned during the show into the show notes. And Marco, before we wrap up, are there sort of any other messages you'd like to share with our audience?
I guess my last key message, and I think it maybe reflects more on me than your audience, but one of the things I'm going to be trying to do is improve my digital IQ. It's a phrase that I've stolen from PwC. They apply it to companies, but I've taken it and I'm going to apply it to myself. And one of my missions is to become more, digital IQ savvy. And I'd encourage your audience to have a think about what their digital IQ is, whether that needs improving.
And in terms of digital IQ, like how would they go about sort of just assessing where they are or I suppose, yeah, where they are, where they could be?
So questions like, do you understand cloud computing? Do you understand big data, the limitations of it and what you could do with it? Do you understand automation? Lots of hype on artificial intelligence, but what is an incremental step rather than a magic one step?
Yeah.
Do you understand fraud? Do you understand data protection? I think all those together, make up your digital IQ. I'm sure I've missed some things out, but those would be some key components.
No, definitely. Look, I'll track down what any other resources I can find on it. But great questions, and I like the way. Yeah, we should be thinking about this incrementally, not some sort of magic wand or giant leap that we can do easily. I think it's, again, like we said earlier, even with the digital IQ, it's practice, and building it up incrementally over time. So Marco, look, again, thanks for being such a great guest and sharing those insights in your journey from engineering to finance to the more commercial side then. And for donating your time and investing your time with us today on the show. So thanks again, Marco.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding, and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities, and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.